four-star receiver Terrence Smith, who has committed to the Hawkeyes. Don, you know a little something about wide receivers with the first name Terrence. Speaking of TJ Hall's dad, who played for you. But Eliot, I didn't expect this today, and now I'm not into the recruiting sphere like you are, of course. We've been waiting on word from Terrence for a while. The more you wait after his official visit, back in June, the more you think, maybe he's going to Minnesota. Did this surprise you? And when did you start to feel intel that this might be coming down on this Sunday?
Well, to tell you the truth, I had my article about a commitment pre-written right after his official visit because of how well it went. He did tell me that it kind of surprised him how well it went. By the sounds of it, he was really leaning Minnesota for a while. And those were the two schools that were really in on him. Iowa State wanted him for a little while. They backed off. A lot of MAC offers. But when you watch the film, I mean, we had him at a high 3-star. So 5.7 rating is what we have him as on Rivals, which is just short of a 4-star. You could make the argument, of course, I think another site has him as a 4-star as well. I label him as a fringe 4-star because he's right there for us. But this is something that I really thought he was leaning Minnesota until this last week. And in July, he had told a couple other folks that he had planned to commit soon. And to me, that was telling that he was going to pick Minnesota because after his official, he said, I want to see the offense in action first before I make a decision, which fine. He's going to be visiting next week, September 7th. And he actually, from what I know, this was a decision that was made within the last week or two. But by the sounds of it, to me, that meant he was going to commit after September 7th, officially announced. But I think, honestly, based on, just reading the tea leaves, this play by Reese Vanderzee this last week was, oh, okay. I'm good with this decision. And so it came out today.
Timing, not to interrupt you, Eliot, but I did feel the timing was curious. I mean, especially given a wide receiver, and Don, just to bring you into this for a second, how many times have we talked about wide receiver play needing to be better before Iowa was really going to be able to compete with the big boys? And as Eliot said, Rivals 247, they both have him as a 3. On 3's got him as a 4. But Rivals has got him, looking here, they've got him as a top 100 player at his position. Iowa has struggled to get kids even at this level at wide receiver. This is a win, and I haven't been able to look at his tape. He's obviously got good size. But, the other thing I would say, Eliot, is one thing I like to do, and this may have no validity at all, but I sometimes look at these other these other offer lists and say, okay, who are they up against as it relates to positional history? Minnesota's a team that's produced really good receivers that have gone to the next level with PJ Fleck. Purdue has done the same thing, although Purdue did it mostly under Jeff Brom, totally different circumstances there. And I believe Iowa State was an offer, right? Of his few Power 5 offers, those were 3 of the 4. All those programs, with the exception being Iowa, have produced NFL-talented receivers, with the exception being Purdue, I guess, with the new coaching staff. Just, Don, your thoughts on getting this commitment one day after a pretty solid performance from Iowa's wideouts?
Well, I was wondering, did his decision change, or maybe did it cement it that we played as well as we did yesterday and he saw productivity out of the receivers? I wonder if that had anything to do with it.
Yeah. Ella, did you get any, I don't know if you've talked to Terrence, did you get any feel from this post-commitment? Have you chatted at all with him?
So I haven't been able to talk with him at all yet. Hoping to do that either, tomorrow or soon. But that's my read of it too. Like I said, I really just think, especially you look at the similarities between him and Reese Vanderzee in terms of the type of receiver they are. Both true X receivers, both 6'4", 190-ish in their senior years of high school ball. That's the model is there for a guy like Terrence Smith to say, okay, this makes sense. And to have guys that are both those size, both guys that can go up and get it, that can make some. I mean, I posted the first 3. I don't know if you saw this, Corey, but I posted the 3 first highlights from his huddle on Twitter today. The first one is a go up and snag it with his left or with his right hand, one-handed catch. The next 2 are touchdowns. One's a go up and get it ball. The other one he found the hole in the zone and took it for 70 yards. It's so like I said, the framework is there with which to work with a guy like Terrence Smith. I like this a lot. This is a big win in my opinion, not only in terms of talent, getting him on campus at Iowa, but to keep him away from a Big Ten rival in Minnesota, right? And the other thing, so I'll just add this quick. I think one key factor in his decision, and again, that he hasn't told me this is just, again, reading the tea leaves, is Minnesota already has 3 wide receiver commits. Iowa doesn't have a single one, or didn't have a single one. And so the path to playing time is quicker there with Iowa. And, I'm not saying he's afraid of competition, but that's something that you recognize when you do make your decision. How many other players are on the roster that are on my same position?
How many scholarships does Iowa have to hand out in 25 to receivers?
As in,
like, I mean, just
how many do they have possess, or how many do they want to give out?
Yeah, well, I mean, how many?
Well, both.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, it's a young group of guys.
So that's a really good question. What I'll tell you what I know right now is they've locked up who they had initially planned to bring in when 85 scholarships was still the number. They're going to keep going a little bit more from what I know, given that the scholarships are up to 105 now. To me, that's an indication that I was going to dip into the portal a little bit more, as opposed to bring in massive recruiting classes. They've already got 15 in this class. This class was going to be a little bit smaller than the year prior. They've got who they want, or who they initially wanted. They are going to go after, I think his first name is Landon Pace, younger brother, son of Orlando Pace, former right offensive tackle in the league. They're looking at him as a defensive lineman. So they're not done. Probably going to be 1 or 2, maybe even more official visits in the season too. So this class isn't over with. I think the majority of their focus is on the 2026, but they're not writing off the rest of the 2025 class. There are going to be some guys that they go after still.
And just for people aware of why I do think this is significant, not just because of the 4-star number that On3 has them at. I think of the pecking order, I guess, or the in recent classes, Eliot, it seems like Iowa has to work their way down, like who they evaluate at receiver. They don't get this guy. All right, just next. Terrence Smith is not as low on that list as we've seen. Is that a layman's way of putting this?
No, I think you put that well. At the same time, so what John Budmeyer did this spring, and I include this in a premium article too. They missed out on Zay Robinson. I don't know if you're familiar with in-state recruiting as much. Went to Iowa State. They missed out on Braylon Collier, who was set to take an official visit. They missed out on Davion Chandler, who's now committed to Indiana, home state kid. So they had their misses, but this is a kid that they offered in February before Budmeyer went out on his tangent of offers in the spring, went out to Chicago, went out to Indianapolis. Seth Wallace actually offered him after an in-school visit, and he ended up coming up on a visit that following weekend for junior day. So this is a kid that was on Iowa's radar and that they wanted before Coach Bud even took over. And so obviously Bud made a good impression. I know you and I had a conversation, I think it was on Mark's podcast, about Budmeyer being notably a good recruiter. And to what I've been told by some folks behind the scenes is he's just been a breath of fresh air in terms of his approach, and that it's different than, the previous wide receivers coach. And, I've referred to Tim Lester as a breath of fresh air, especially compared to, again, the previous OC. You've been at pressers with Tim, right?
Yeah.
It's just a completely different dynamic. It's yeah, we'll leave it there. But from what I've been told, it's like that with Coach Bud as well. So,
yeah, I had a great conversation with Coach Budmeyer, and I nothing against Kelton Copeland. I never had any. Some guys are more natural recruiters and connect with young people. That's just right, Don.
At the same time, Kelton landed 2 4-stars 4 classes ago, right? Just couldn't get him to stick around.
Yeah, and we know the room's had problems with drops, and
right.
That's the one thing I brought up earlier, Eliot. I don't know if you were in the queue waiting, but this is a room that had no drops yesterday. knock on wood, 1 game in, but that's positive, whether you want to credit Lester, credit Budmeyer. Obviously, they've got different players and true freshman Vanderzee and transfer Jacob Gill, but that helps. And I think you're right on yesterday and whether that's a good way of making a decision, basing it on, I don't know if it was like, hey, I'm really close to wanting to play, but I need a little bit more. And okay, I see what they did week 1. Now I'm going to pull the trigger, whatever. Got to hold on to them. Got to hold on to them. We got several months until signing day. And, skill position guys have decommitted in the past.